So, Matt, how did Washco actually come about? You were saying before that it was born out of At Height. What sort of made you guys go, well, there's another opportunity here?
So we'd been washing buildings with At Height for almost a decade, and so we're probably talking 2016, 2017. And it got to the point where our clients liked us because we were washing their buildings to a good standard and we were good to deal with. And then they were offering us other buildings to quote that weren't necessarily abseiling, so maybe a low-rise apartment building or a retirement village that wasn't a high-rise. It was a number of villas or just a smaller building that we didn't need to abseil.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where we're taking on this work. It's good work. It's keeping us busy, and we're actually hiring staff that didn't have any intentions of abseiling. So it kind of got to the point where it was another part of the exterior cleaning industry that we wanted to keep on pushing and growing in. And it made sense for us to kind of start up a new company where we could have staff specialising in those companies. And also from a marketing point of view, it was quite awkward to go to a kind of low-rise apartment or a single-story block of retirement villages or apartments and heights. I'm Ben from At Height. I want to have the opportunity to price your low rise. So we decided to start a new company called Washco. Now it's as big as At Height is, if not bigger, and they're kind of growing side by side. There's a lot of synergy between the two. Obviously At Height, which I talked about last time I was on the podcast. Doing the high rise, but quite often there'll be a single job that has both aspects, and so we're able to get our At Height crew in to come and do the abseiling, and then the Washco crew can come in and do the low rise stuff. And
mate, well, congratulations for a start having two businesses that are complementing each other, and I think it's great that you come up with the idea and you actually just go for it. You can see a little gap in the market there and you go for it, and turn it into something realistic and that. What you mentioned a couple of them, but what are the other main points of difference between what Washco does and what At Height does?
Yeah, so I mean, At Height is your kind of standard rope access company where we are cleaning those tall buildings, but it also does all the maintenance stuff. Whereas Washco is just a full service exterior cleaning company. So we're just really specialising in cleaning large buildings, and sometimes they do have a bit of height to them, or sometimes they're just a large group of buildings, whether it's a large commercial building, schools, universities, being able to offer that work to kind of city councils and very large organisations. So they are quite similar. It basically comes down to At Height abseils, Washco doesn't.
So where do you draw the line with the height? Like, is it a couple of stories, or where's the difference?
I'd say it's probably about the 4-story mark.
Yeah.
Washco can generally clean up to 4 stories using EWPs or telescopic poles. It's not always the case. Sometimes there might be a 3-story apartment building with balconies. You can't be climbing into balconies with ladders, so that would remain an At Height job. But our guys are up in Ori. We're doing a 3-story apartment complex right there now, and once again we've got the At Height guys up there abseiling off the roof into the balconies, so we're not having to get internal access. People aren't home during the day, and then the Washco guys there are doing all the breezeways and cleaning what they can from the ground.
So how often would the teams actually work together? Like what sort of percentage of your workload would they be? You'd have both teams there essentially.
Yeah, it doesn't happen all the time. I'd say maybe 10-20% of the time. Often they are off on their own jobs, and we do try and keep them separate for a number of reasons. But then they come together. So we've just implemented social clubs in the two companies, and they decided that one of their first big events, they wanted to come together and go shoot each other with paintball bullets. So good on them.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
As soon as you said that, I was like, paintball. You get the two, and then you said it. I was like, "Oh, mate, that is classic. That's awesome."
So good to see a bit of camaraderie and a bit of competition, between the two companies, because they're all in and out of the same yard, and they're all going to see each other, but they're not often working together.
Do you get team staff that go between the companies? Like, have they started in one and gone to the other, or?
Yeah, we have had a few staff say come into Washco and then have the desire to try abseiling. But the thing from our point of view is our staff are so valuable to us as they are for any company, but they get to know their group of clients and their style of work. that if someone's been in Washco for a year or two, it's if they're going to go to At Height, they're leaving to go to another company. They become very valuable, and so we're trying to look after our staff to keep them there. So even within the two companies that we own, we need them to stay.
Well, the ones that swap over get the target on their back for the paintball, pretty quickly.
Yeah, they would. And for the same reason, I didn't join in that.
Well, it's a classic at like stag do's and stuff. Over the old stag goes and stands on the log and just gets absolutely pumped. But yeah, good game of paintball is generally quite good for the team, as long as you're not going to force everyone to do it, but if they want to do it, let them do it.
It was completely optional, but it was good to see they all turned up there. So it's really good to see our staff creating their own culture and owning that. So it's very good.
That's the key, man. Is that culture aspect, and companies live or die on their culture, and your culture might be a family inclusive thing, or it might be just values driven or whatever, but and even corporate culture, some people love corporate culture and they just love that sort of that high end pressure driven environment, but you've just got to be able to define that culture. I think you can't sort of let it just float along and have all these different things happening. You've got to have some quite strong values around that. Do you guys sort of get into the value side of it as well as a business?
Not specifically. It's something I've always struggled with. I think that those kind of values, I get it that a company has a motto and values, but I always felt they're quite generic.
Yeah.
So we just kind of let it just be a bit more natural, and it's kind of one of the reasons why we set up a social club. Just kind of gave the team their own budget. Yep. Every week there's some kind of money goes into that budget, and they can just go organise their own thing. Let them kind of be in control of some of that culture that they're building.
Well, there straight away you define that it's people driven, and it's driven by the team. It's not driven by one individual or you guys. As owners of the company, it's driven by the team, and that straight away that tells a lot about the culture. You guys are happy for the team you trust them enough to get on and build that camaraderie. A larger part is around camaraderie, and you trust them enough to do that. So it's cool. That's the way to go. You can tell that comes through in certain organisations, especially service-based teams like yourself and like what we do as well. It's that camaraderie that gets you through either those hard times or those hard jobs or difficult clients or whatever. Yeah,
it's super important. We are client facing in a certain respect. We are trying to remind our staff that they are going to someone's home or someone's place of work. So for those 8-9 hours a day, you are a guest, and you need to be polite. And it's I think our staff do that very well, and it's always great to get feedback from those clients, just saying how polite and the compliments we get back are sometimes, hey, the building's looking great now. Guys did a great job of cleaning it, but normally it's the guys are really polite and lovely to have on site, and
it's cool, man.
I think that's huge.
One thing I like about you guys, stuff that you do on LinkedIn with your team profiles and stuff, that's a really good thing. How did you what was the idea behind that, aside from wanting to introduce people to your team? Was it a bit of a brain fart one day, or was it a planned thing?
I'll have to admit that it was some really good advice from someone, Jacob Stanfield from Local Market.
Nice.
Give him a plug there. Social media expert, and he kind of put a plan together for us of kind of how to schedule those posts, and maybe job of the week, and then kind of another post during the week can be introducing the team. And so we kind of backdated that and went through and kind of asked the team some generic questions. What's your favorite job, and with the guys on the At Height, what's your tallest building, and just a few questions like that, and slowly kind of drip feed that into the social media.
But it's interesting, I find it interesting because it's so often we're in or around these buildings, and you see the guys or the girls hanging off the side of the building, and you don't get to actually meet them as much as you probably should, or it's actually quite nice to find out who they are and what they're about. And I think it helps sort of bring people into to your business and your service and what you do. So from that point of view, it's got to be it's a real winner. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. And it's something that we kind of realised recently. It was my business partner Martin kind of noted that we are engaged by people like yourself, building managers or body corporates, or a retirement village manager. We don't get to have any kind of real engagement or relationship with the residents. So Martin came up with the idea of just getting some little bags of jelly beans
Oh, yeah.
with just a little Washco logo, and a little thanks for having us. So
Nice.
we try and just drop those into the letterboxes, just going, hey,
Mate.
we appreciate you as well, because we generally don't have that engagement with individual residents.
It's a nice little touch, and it's something that I haven't seen anyone else doing it. So you guys are one up there, but it's just something that it's not a business card. Everyone sees a bloody business card, and you're like, oh, another business card. It's just it's a nice little personal touch, and that goes a long way to keeping you in people's minds too.
Yeah,
because they might not necessarily. They might give the bloody jelly beans to someone else, but then it's just like passing around the details and that.
Yeah, and for some residents in an apartment building or a retirement village, they'll just get a notification saying, hey, your windows are getting cleaned next week. They might not even know who we are. So, yeah, so it was a nice little touch. It was quite difficult in the first few weeks I think we had like 2,000 bags of jelly beans in the office, so we had to move those down into the yard and put them in boxes and get them out of sight, because there's some jelly beans getting eaten.
2,000, mainly the team bloody hooking into them, I guess, at bloody morning tea time or whatever.
So it was a bit dangerous, so we had to be a bit more disciplined.
Yeah, got to watch out for the diabetic members of the team, eh? Actually, jelly beans might be quite good for them. So just going back again to the similarities and differences between the two companies, are there any major differences between the methods of, when you guys actually wash a tall building as opposed to a low-rise building? Using different equipment, or is there different health and safety considerations, or what's the big differences there?
Not really. Our Washco crew is still getting up on roofs, so they're still using that type of health and safety. They're still working in full arrest, so they're still using harnesses and ropes. Our cleaning methods are still pretty much the same. I think the fact that they are so similar has kind of given us a bit of an edge. Having come from a rope access background, we still treat all those buildings, all our Washco jobs, the same. So, for example, I was talking about like the having to abseil into people's balconies. So that was always a really you're getting quite intimate with someone's house in that, or apartment in that space, where every 6 months you're abseiling down a building and kind of swinging into their balconies. So it was always really important to be giving a client a really detailed schedule. We're going to be in this area on this day, and that's something we still do, which potentially some other companies might not have kind of come from that background. So if we're going to an apartment complex or university or working for the council, we're really detailed on this is when we're going to be in this area and that area, just because it's just a habit. But
and people are generally fine, like they don't mind a bit of short notice, or if you're going to be there, as long as they know, and as long as they know in advance, like not as you're doing, so having that schedule is really important. And we find that on some of the larger buildings too, like if they haven't either done the building before and they're not quite sure how long it's going to take, we say, look, give us an approximate time frame, so we can at least sort of warn people it's going to be within this sort of time frame. And like I said, as long as people know, like they tend to be okay with it. It's when they don't know, when they get a surprise, they're like, oh, someone's been on my bloody balcony and they weren't supposed to, and that's when the shit hits the fan. And that's when it becomes problematic. But it's just down to that communication, I guess. Yeah,
100%. I mean, communication would be everything in your industry, and we're in the industry of washing buildings, but I would say one of the most important parts of that industry is still communication. Just communicating what you're going to be doing, when you're going to be doing it, and communicating back when it's done. And and any issues or anything.
I always go back to the 3 words that we have on our walls out there: identify, solve, communicate. It's basically boiling down what we do. And I guess if one of those 3 words is out of sync or not included in that process, then it all kind of falls over. Like I always say to people, like, if you identify something and solve it, but you don't tell them, you don't do the communicate part, then they don't know, and you may as well have not even done the job in some cases. Or if you if you identify something and communicate it, well, they want to know, well, what's the solution? You got to have all those things going on at the same time, and so that's quite key for us. When you guys are like, you're scoping a building out, so you're doing a quote or whatever, at what point do you look at the building and you go, right, we're going to wash it this way? Or how do you actually decide how you're going to break down a building when you wash it?
So a couple of aspects. Obviously, access is the first one. Is it an at-height job? Are we going to abseil it? We would always, if it doesn't have to be abseiled, then we won't. basic health and safety. If you can eliminate, isolate, minimise, if we can eliminate being on the roof and putting anyone in that potential danger, even though we do manage it, then you eliminate that. Next comes down to the just general access and the type of building. There's so many different claddings out there. So whether we're pressure washing or soft washing, just things like that. The cladding and access will determine what we're doing. But it pretty much just comes down to those two methods. We're either pressure washing it or just using soft brushes and a bit of chemical.
Yeah, and so I guess you'd always wash like top down, eh?
Yep.
Yeah, and so with a really big building, would you go, right, we've got to start in a certain place because of a certain, I don't know, wind, or do you have to sort of get detailed when you break it down, or you just go, no, we're going to start there and go around that way?
Yeah, just make it up as you go. We are definitely creatures of habit though, so we've had clients for almost some buildings for almost 20 years now.
Wow. Yeah.
And we start in the same place every single time. And it's quite funny, you get new staff come along, and new operations manager, and you're like, this is where we start, and it's like, why? It's just like,
because we've always done it that way.
Because we've always done it that way.
Yeah. Well, mate, if it works and it's efficient, I mean, if you've been doing it for 20 years, you probably would have figured out all the shortcuts, or not shortcuts, but how to make it more efficient, and less time consuming. So that's sweet. I was going to say there about building washing. What else have we talked about building washing? Was there anything else we should cover off about building washing?
We could talk about just the different aspects.
Yeah.
I think I think roof washing is one of the most unspoken about bit of a building, but probably the most important.
Yeah.
I mean, especially with all the rain we've had in Auckland these last 6 months. If anyone had issues with their roofs or gutters, they definitely know about it now. And it can also be a bit of a tough sell from our point of view as well. We might get asked to come quote a large commercial warehouse and looking to get the exterior of their building cleaned, and we always offer an option for the roof, even if it's not asked for, simply because it's really needed.
Yeah.
It's obviously one of those areas that a building owner or an occupier doesn't see. But it does exist, and they do need to be cleaned.
Yeah. The only time they see it is when there's a leak coming through, and they're like, "Oh shit!" They're seeing the underside because they probably haven't maintained it properly, and all of a sudden it's corroded a bit, or some of the bloody the nails or whatever's used on the roof have popped or whatever. Mate, your roofs can be an absolute bloody nightmare from that perspective. So, and they can be a massive area too. Like some roofs on those buildings out towards the airport, they're like acres of space in there.
They are acres. Yeah. I think some of the biggest ones in Auckland would be pushing 100,000 square metres, which I think is like 10 acres or 10 hectares or something. Some really large roofs. So
that's
I think the largest roof we've washed recently would be 10,000 square metres, and it's a very, very large roof.
How long would that take?
I think it took a team of two, maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks. Yeah.
That's mind-boggling, because I guess it'd be like mowing a lawn in some ways. You just got to start somewhere and just back and forth and just move your way along.
Yeah, 100%. And you've got to have a really good playlist or podcast to listen to, because it's definitely quite repetitive. Yeah. But there's multiple ways of maintaining a roof. You don't have to just wash it. Roof treatments are definitely the most cost-effective. Yeah. So it's applying a moss and mould treatment, which is plenty of good products available in New Zealand. We've really set ourselves up to do that efficiently. So we've got multiple trailer units and truck units with kind of 400 litre tanks. We're mixing the chemical in bulk. With multiple hose reels with a really kind of good grunty chemical pump.
So you're almost applying it almost like a light water blast that's coming out in that sort of volume. Just do big areas in a short space of time.
100%. So you're basically just up there wetting the roof to the point that it's just starting to run, going to run off. So there's you put as much on as possible. There's some roofs where that's the only real option. So if you get to an asbestos roof, or they call it a Super 8 roof, there's not too many of them left, luckily. But you can't wash that. You can't scrub that. So it's the only option. If it's delicate, sometimes you've got delicate sections of kind of clear light, which is just a plastic or a fiberglass mould that's been sitting under the UV rays for decades. That's not going to be appropriate to wash either.
Yeah, dare I say it, but have you ever had anyone sort of put a foot through or bloody fall through That's good health and safety. It comes down to health and safety, I reckon.
Yeah, and there's things in place. So like most roofs should have a mesh underneath them. I believe it's part of the building code where if a section of roof does fail, there is a mesh underneath it. Yeah, but that is a real issue. But no, touch wood.
Do you have to be more concerned about the weather when you're up there? Like not just like rain and wind, but sun when you're on top of a roof would be pretty full on, wouldn't it? Like you'd get be like when you go to the bloody snow. Some roofs you get that glare or whatever. Do you have to sort of account for that or allow for that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, a big 10,000 square metre white roof, you're standing in the middle of it on a hot sunny day, it's just bright everywhere.
Yeah. Bit of sunscreen.
Yeah,
the old UV goggles or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Weather-wise, I'd always recommend washing a roof in the rain, assuming that it is safe. So big flat roof, it's just going to soften everything up. Obviously one of the worst things that can happen to like a steel roof is lichen growth, and that just is exponential. Once it starts, it just grows, and that's the stuff that's going to cause you a real issue. It'll eat through the paint. And I mean, New Zealand Colour Steel, I think, do some really good products. You can see their TV ads, they last forever, and there's like 17 layers of paint and primer on them, but you let lichen sit on that for a decade and it'll eat through the steel.
Really? It's a little living organism in it, isn't it? Really, so it's kind of it's doing its thing and
it's putting its roots down, and it's amazing how much damage it can cause. So stuff like that, you get up there on a hot summer's day and it's just bone dry. It's really hard to clean off, but you get up there and it's been raining for the week. It's much more soft and easy.
So once you've done a roof wash, and say do you tell the guys, look, while you're up there, keep an eye out for anything that might have any rust or any nails that have popped, or do you actually get the guys to keep track of if they see any maintenance items, note it down, and then would you say like to the building owner, we found these while we're up there, do you want us to fix them, or do you give them a sort of a quote or a plan or whatever?
Yeah, for sure. And we understand the fact that we're the set of eyes and ears, mostly eyes. There's not much too much noise going up there. Yeah,
wind.
And so we do take that seriously. We're getting paid to do a service, but we're also given that opportunity to literally look over every square inch of that roof. So we've got a few things in place. Like over the years, technology's got better, so we're now using apps for everything, as I'm sure most companies are. So our guys fill in an end-of-day report and just on an app, just making sure everyone's healthy and safe, and they're going home for the day. This is what they got done, and it's just questions. Is there anything to report? And then at the end of the job, they're doing a site completion report that's just got photos, and so there's just questions prompting our staff to, there's an opportunity to take a photo of that, put it in a report, they get sent to the client. So
more particularly from hey, here's like not a value add, but while we're up there we saw this, do you want us to fix it? Do you get much of that sort of work?
Yeah, and that's one of the advantages of having At Height as well, is that company, those guys are doing those types of small remedial works quite regularly. So we are able to touch up some paint or do some maintenance on a gutter, or maybe just gluing down some laps on an old butanol roof that no one else wants to touch. It's very hard to get like a waterproofer up there to do a mild repair on someone's product from 20 years ago. But just small maintenance like that.
That's cool. Like to me, that's gold, because you're up there doing a job, and if you see something else that needs doing, report it and get it done. Because the amount of times where we've had, say, roofs or parts of a building washed and there's been an issue, but they haven't bothered to report it or just put something in writing like we've requested, and it's like, why didn't you tell us you saw that bloody corrosion up there or that crack in the whatever it can be. Some companies just won't. They'll just do the job and then they'll bugger off. So I think if you guys do that, that's a massive value add for people like us. It just helps us with, and it means you're not having to go through, say, internal repairs to fix something that wasn't sort of notified on the outside of the building. So that's valuable for us.
It's a good sign of paying attention, isn't it?
It's
like, we're
invested. You're invested in the bloody in the job, and that's what we want. We want contractors to be engaged and, dare I say, go that little bit extra. But it's that whole attitude around, if you're paying attention and you see something and you're that way inclined, you're thinking that way, then let us know so we can while you're up there, while you're down there, wherever you are, we'll get you to fix it as well.
Yeah.
You know, add that to the bill.
You raise a good point about being invested, and I was, thinking about some topics to discuss today, and that was one of the things I come up with, because what happens, like, with us is, I talk about, we've had clients that we've had for almost 20 years or 10 years or 5 years. Like, you do get invested in the building. So, I'll be driving around with my kids in the car, and you're like, you're pointing out all the, you'd be like, I managed that one, and we'd be like, we cleaned that one, and you don't live there, you don't own a unit, but you're part of that community in a small way, and as you can't really invested in those buildings, and you want the best of them, and so I think that's one of the advantages of having those long-term contractors. There are some people that'll just go and get 3 quotes every single time, and sure, that's one approach. But we do really well with just kind of building that relationship, and like, here's our price, we'll do a good job, everyone's happy, just let us come back and do it next year. We're not going to put our price up every time. We'll keep an eye on inflation, and every 3-4 years we might have to, but you just get to know the building so much better, and like we were talking about before, you know where to start, you know how to be efficient, and I think that's what we do well, and it's one of the things our clients like us for as well. So get to know the building and become invested.
Mate, that's fantastic to hear, because I totally agree. It's that you want that long-term relationship, right? And that can help with what we were just talking about before, about you see the building year on year. You'll see it either degrading, or when something isn't quite right, you'll know it, and you'll be like, oh shit, I need to tell someone about that. So yeah, totally agree, and it kind of leads into what we were talking about earlier about you guys having contracted work versus just sort of, I guess, business as usual type work. So in our industry, all of our fees are they're contracted, so we get paid regularly. We get paid monthly, so it's really good from a cash flow point of view. There's a lot of trades and services out there where they don't know where their next job is, or they might have 6 months work, or but beyond that, they don't know if they're going to have any income or revenue or whatever. Do you guys, how are you set? Do you have that sort of setup where you sign up a building for like 5 years, and you go, right, we'll wash your building every year for 5 years, or twice a year, or whatever? Or is it really just having to do quoting all the time? How does it work for you guys?
So we've got a couple of clients that we are kind of contracted into for 4 or 5 years. That was more their choice. So that client examples are non-for-profit organisation with a board, and they just need to have their costs kind of locked down, because they're not there making money, and they've got their limited income stream. But other than that, pretty much all our clients, it's just on a we'll do a good job, and there's a mutual agreement that you'll have us back. And that's one of the great things about Washco is similar to yours, it is regular. The cash flow monthly might vary, but over a long period of time, we can build our business comfortably. So if we pick up a new apartment building, or a new retirement village, or a new commercial building, there's a reasonable chance that we'll be doing the same job in 12 months. So we've got a workload spreadsheet that's forecasted always 12 months ahead of time. So I've known what Washco's doing this November basically since last November,
right?
Because those people or the clients had their buildings washed then, and they wanted it done in November for whatever reason, and they'll want it done again. And that's gives us security for our staff. It comes time, are we getting big enough to hire another 2 guys, buy another van? We can kind of look at that and go, well, yes, we are.
Did you learn that from being in business, or are you that guy at home? You've got to plan things ahead, or is that like human nature for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I am. I think I'm that guy that will organise like a road trip for my family, like a week-long trip or something, and there is a spreadsheet that's got that.
Stop here at this time and have lunch here. And
pretty much. Definitely the accommodation activities are kind of planned out. Just makes sense. It's just been organised.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's being organised, and that's you're either good at that or you're not. And I think like some people try and kid themselves and I can organise anything, and it's like you actually can't, because to organise anything requires you to break down whatever it is into a whole lot of little parts, and understand how those parts affect each other, and what part needs to happen when, and it's a process, right?
Yeah.
And so you'd understand that from looking ahead 12 months.
Yeah, we call it logistics in the office. So we're in the logistics business.
Yeah.
We're not really moving anything from A to B, but we are. We've got a team of guys. We've got a fleet of vehicles, and we've got a warehouse full of exterior cleaning equipment, and it is organising what's going to be where, when, and in the most efficient way to meet the client's requirements. So,
so I almost disagree with you there. You are moving stuff. You're moving your team in order to provide your service. And when you got a team the size of yours with all the different people and equipment and stuff, it is a logistical exercise to get to site. You guys probably don't think it is. You just show up at the workshop, then show up at site. But what happens behind the scenes of that, it's probably quite mind-boggling for some people. But you guys just take it in your stride, just part of business.
For sure. And one of the most painful things in business is to send a crew of guys to a job and then have someone turn back up at the yard because they forgot something, that's always that's always going to happen. But for us to be an efficient company that's profitable, you want to minimise that. So yeah, I mean, we've been in the business for a long time now. We've got 20 plus staff. So there's a lot of moving parts. So
and
getting better at it each day.
That's the thing, and because everything's changing so much these days with technology, or staff's expectations, or how your equipment works. There's so many moving parts, like you say, and you've got to constantly be adapting to that. If there's a new piece of kit that you think, oh shit, we could do that, we could get that because that'll make these jobs easier, then you get that. Then you've got to train the staff on it, and then you've got to fund it somehow, pay for it or whatever. So it is that constant juggling act around how do we keep this business moving and growing and performing.
Yeah, and for some reason I really enjoy it. So I get out of bed quite excited about most days.
That's
and
great.
There's something about just having that demand of being organised, and to see a job pan out and they get done and the client's happy and everyone's safe and they get to go home, and you get paid at the end of the day. That's a little success. And I mean, we've got full-time staff across the country now. We've got a division in Dunedin. We've got 3 full-time staff down there.
Nice.
We've just started in Tauranga, so we've got 1 full-time staff member down there. So there's adding a few more layers to that organisation. But
I've got a mate who's got a branch in Dunedin as well. You guys might be complementary for each other. We'll have a chat to you about that afterwards. We're saying before about cash flow and that. I was talking to someone the other day that's basically defined their part of their fee structure as a subscription. And I thought, fuck, that's a genius way to actually not call it a fee or a charge, or it was like it softened the whole thing around payment. And it sounds like a subscription sounds like it's an ongoing thing, or if you subscribe to a magazine, I just expect it to turn up every month in the letterbox. And the way that he sold it to me, I was like, shit, that's bloody genius. Would a subscription or similar type model work in your guys' business, or for I don't know, for Washco or for Ad Height?
yeah, it would, and it is something we do a bit of. So we had a large body corporate client that we've been working with for well over a decade. They took on a new development. They were aware that they needed to maintain their roof and cladding by doing their annual wash. But for whatever reason, that body corporate was set up and they didn't have the money sitting in their bank account to get those services immediately. And so we got asked whether we could do something like that, and we were able to make that work. So we can turn up and do the building wash the roof, and also schedule a window clean 6 months later, but then just invoice that whole package monthly over those 12 months. A little bit of a hit to the cash flow in doing that off the bat, but it gives us just another layer of stability as well. That 6 monthly window clean is booked in because we're kind of meeting them in the middle and helping them out as well. So we have a few buildings that do that. Once we kind of got to the point where there was a few on that system, it's not really a hit to our kind of cash flow because there's multiple monthly invoices being sent out. It is something we offer, so I can kind of identify that now. Sometimes they're a new apartment complex or a retirement village just starting, and we can say this is an option.
Spread your costs essentially.
Spread the costs, and sometimes it enables us to spread the workload as well. So it can be mutually beneficial, and kind of what we were touching on before, just that having that long-term relationship and just being able to work together.
And it's real good for your spreadsheet as well.
Yeah.
you can forecast out on the old spreadsheet. Yeah. You touched on before about being nationwide. Like, when did you guys sort of, if you started in Auckland back in the day, like when did you sort of, do you remember your first job outside of Auckland?
Yeah, I think we had a large project done in Rotorua many years ago, and that was pre-Washco, just doing some abseiling building maintenance, and I quite enjoyed that. Getting out of town and seeing a new city. So there's definitely part of it. I know you've talked to a lot of the previous guests about how becoming a building manager was a lifestyle decision. You got to, if you're a business owner, you got to look to see how you can make those things work for you, and so the idea of being able to get familiar with the rest of New Zealand was really appealing to me, and to be getting paid to do it. So that always left me open to looking at jobs outside of Auckland. So we started and picked up a few clients in Whangarei and then Kerikeri, and did some jobs in Tauranga. And it would have been a few years ago, we got a call from someone in Dunedin asking if we could clean the windows on a few of his buildings. It just wasn't really getting looked after. I don't think at the time he could even find anyone in Dunedin, and thought, all right, we'll price that up, and he was happy with our price. So we went from one end of New Zealand to the other.
You still doing it? Still doing it.
Yeah, still got that same client. And so that was kind of a non-natural city to expand into from Auckland. We kind of got there, and just the size of the city, there was no real established rope access company. Down in Dunedin, and there's a few kind of large property owners down there. There's the university, obviously, and so we just thought, stuff it. Maybe Dunedin is the next city that we kind of move into permanently. And
it doesn't have to be Wellington or Christchurch. It can be. There's plenty of other cities out there. We've done some work outside of the city too over the years, and what surprised me when you go out to some of the smaller cities, and that is that lack of either expertise or even just certain services that that they're like, oh, we don't actually have any like ad hoc people in town, or even some of the capabilities of like their basic trades are still sort of lacking. So, and it was kind of a bit of a shock really when you in Auckland you think of something to do with property maintenance, you know who to call, and they go, yeah, I can do it, no problem, whatever it is. Some bloody strange thing happens, I can do that as well. But man, outside of Auckland, it's like, fucking hell, like some people would look at you like you're mad, like what's that, or how would you normally fix that? So that to me, like we're seeing you guys like going down to Dunedin, you're probably providing a service that either has been poorly done or even hasn't even been done at all, potentially. I don't know. Yeah,
there's definitely some things we're offering clients down there that they just didn't know was an option. There's a few people down there that would be using cranes to clean their gutters. Whoa, let's we can give you some other options there. And so we've been down there for 4 years now. One of our staff, Cam, packed up his family and moved down there, and started a different and new life, and moved down with one kid, and now he's got 3. It's been great, and slowly building our client base down there.
So he took that opportunity to go. Did you guys sort of say, do you want to go down and do that, or was he saying, I'm moving into Dunedin, and you say, well, I've got an opportunity for you, mate?
Wasn't quite that perfect. No, well, we really knew that to do it, we needed to have someone that we trusted. Go down there and take ownership of that division. And Cam was the first person we thought of. He'd already shown us his work ethic and his loyalty to us, and we knew there was a high level of trust both ways, and so we offered it to him, and he was keen to give it a go, and he's gone down there and made the most of it, and
that's cool. That's a cool little story, eh? It's cool to see, and it's cool to provide those pathways for your team as well. Like you said, it wasn't exactly how it sounded, but to retain someone that's really good, give them an opportunity, see them grow into that. There's benefit for you guys as well. That's what business is all about, if you ask me.
Yeah, and it is, isn't it? Because if you get some really good staff, they're gonna want to grow, right? And there's going to be ceilings within businesses, and they can only go so far. So that's another part of it is having different divisions around the country is going to just add a whole other level of logistics to your organisation, but it's going to create opportunities for people to go and kind of lead their own area. So we are definitely mindful of that.
Yeah, is there another city that you're sort of thinking, well, that's our next one? Like, would you go to Wellington, or would you set up somewhere else outside of those two?
Yeah, so we've set up in Tauranga now, and so that was a bit of a different situation. It was business partner Martin, his brother, who'd been working for us on and off for 10 years, another great, loyal, hard-working guy. And he was settling down there with a young family as well, and reached out to us and said, hey, can I come back and work with you guys, but in Tauranga? And we don't really have any work down there now, but just an opportunity where such a hard-working and good guy that it was worth us to put the time and effort into to keep him busy, because he's such an asset to our organisation, and he would be anywhere. So putting in the effort down there, and kind of reached out through the network that we already had to see who was down there, and started to build up another new client base.
Well, you look at the way Tauranga is growing anyway. You know, it's the growth that probably over the last 5 years down there has been huge. So many people from Auckland moving down there, like building boom and all that sort of thing, which I understand is kind of slowed right down at the moment, but yeah, it's just kind of seems like a natural, like, next sort of place to go to that's not Hamilton.
Yeah, correct, and it's makes way more sense than Dunedin did 4 years ago. But you're right, there is that, like you say, the difference between Auckland and the smaller towns. A place like Hamilton and Wellington and Christchurch are going to have established companies, and Tauranga is pretty much the same. There's not a gap in the market there or anything, but it's close. It's close enough. It's a day trip for me to go down there and meet a potential client and price work. So
yeah, cool, man. No, that's good to hear. Have you guys got any sort of exciting stuff in the pipeline for the next year or two? Like, you got any sort of cool stuff coming up on your spreadsheet that you got planned in, like any new sort of services or ventures or anything like that?
Yeah, I got asked the same question. I'd taken on a business development manager, Jared, and he asked me that question the other day. He was like, "What do you want to see in the next year or two?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want to be different?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Nothing."
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've got a really good thing going, and we're just going to slowly grow that. I think you'll understand it too. You can't be growing too quickly. You get speed wobbles and cash flow issues, and so. We've been, growing kind of 20% year on year for 5-6 years now, and our staff numbers are pushing on 30, and so almost need to kind of reel it in sometimes and go, let's just stick to what we're doing. But what happens and what's happened over the last 5 years is opportunities just arise, and someone will call me from Dunedin and go, "Hey, do you want to?" And you just go, "Yep,
do it."
Yeah. So just follow the opportunities.
And that's one of the exciting things about running your own business, is that if something does come up, you can decide whether or not you want to pursue it or not. And quite often, I guess, you being at the point end of your organisation, you're like, shit, that could be quite cool if we did that, or you get to see those, like, I guess those opportunities. That's what they are, and you get to make that decision about taking it or not, and that's the exciting part. That can be really great if you get it right. If it doesn't come off, then you're like, well, at least you learn something. But that's the cool thing about running your own business. Yeah,
it really is. And I was talking to someone a few years ago, and I was kind of telling them that I wasn't a creative person. Like, I can't draw, I can't write, I can't write a story. I can definitely tell a yarn. I just felt like I wasn't a creative person, and then someone turned it back on me. Well, look at what you've created in your business. So I'm like, oh wow, I am. Yeah, that is quite creative. So there is a huge sense of enjoyment in that.
I guess it depends how you define creative, because most people think, oh, you're an artist or a fucking actor or a singer or something like that, and you've essentially done what all those creative people do, but with the business. Yeah. And with people and a service, so that's hugely creative.
Yeah, created a business and created job opportunities, and very proud of all of that.
Mate, absolutely.
But back to your other question, I think a couple of things on the radar for us is probably just getting some big shiny kit, being in that position where we're kind of big enough to go, we can we can look at that. So you know, having a our own boom lift truck, you know, a couple $100,000 there. It's a big ticket item, but we're getting to the point where we're hiring them enough that, you know, potentially is cost effective. You know, something that most people probably wouldn't think of is we're looking at buying a $30,000 vacuum.
Wow.
You know, most people wouldn't even know they.
Is that a really big vacuum or a really strong vacuum? Like a $30,000.
Both. So you know, trailer mounted.
Yeah.
Big industrial vacuum. I think it's potentially got, you know, 60-80 meters of hose on it, basically for gutter cleaning. So you know, you get we had a client based in Newmarket, and they've got some buildings, you know, where there's you know, trees down either side of the road. You know, it was a good idea when they planted them, but now they've grown taller than the buildings and just constantly dropping leaves. So it's a real issue. And you know, to be cleaning a 100-meter stretch of gutters, whether it's on the roof or in the canopies, takes a long time to do it by hand or a small gutter scoop. But if you've got a trailer mounted vacuum parked out the back of the building, you just run a hose up and over and just hoof the whole lot up. You know, and once again, it's it's a service we can offer more efficiently. And
that's the efficiency. If you got something that can, you know, suck those leaves out of those gutters quickly and effectively without someone having to like literally hand scoop them or whatever you did before, run a hose down them, because you can't just let that shit sort of fall down the downpipe. Do you actually have to collect it out of the
I mean, you can't just, you know, sometimes you got gutters that are incredibly blocked, so you know, you can't just be hosing it all down the drain. You'll just cause further issues. So you can collect it all up, bag it up, dispose of it. We've already got a couple of smaller vacuums that you operate from the ground, you know, with a kind of 8-meter hose and then carbon fiber poles, so we can clean the gutters on like a 1 or 2, maybe 3-story building at a push from the ground. But this, you know, a new bit of kit like this will just open up a whole lot more options.
I've seen some like horrendous like gutter cleans over the years, and like, you know, if you see like a plant sitting in a gutter or whatever, and they pull the plant out and they're literally pulling it out for it because the roots are all the way down the bloody downpipe, whatever, and man, they grow so massive, eh? It's amazing what can end up in those gutters, and you think, how did that even get up there? It's probably a bird shitting on the roof or whatever.
It's all it takes, and it's just going to be exponential, right? Once you get that small clump of grass growing, that clump of grass is going to catch all the bird crap. It's going to hold more water, and then it just grows and grows. And it's the same with lichen on a roof. You know, you can maybe get away with not doing it for a few years, and there's no issue. But once those things get a hold, they're just going to get worse and worse exponentially, and they can definitely get away on you. It's
been good to have a chat, and it's cool to hear that you got some like cool stuff coming up in the next 12 months and that, and you know, it's awesome to learn a bit more about Washco as well. You know, that's like I said before, congratulations on having 2 businesses that are going well. You know, it's not a lot of people can say that at the moment. You know, there's recessionary stuff out there starting to bite, and you know, you guys have been through, over your 20 odd years in business, you've been through GFCs and bloody pandemics and all sorts of shit, and you're still here. So you know, that's really awesome, man. And
here's a couple of notches on the belt now, after a period like that.
Exactly.
Thank you, and congratulations to you as well for your podcast. I think I was talking to John Mabry, who was one of your earlier guests, and he's saying that, you know, most podcasts get to their second episode and stop. So you know, you're almost 50, mate.
Nearly 50 now. So we're getting to what I think this might be 47. Kylie jumped the gun. She put something on LinkedIn last night and said, I'm going to be the 50th podcast, which we'd already agreed to, but it's like, why don't you do that in like 3 or 4 posts time? But it's good fun, and I'm enjoying it, and sort of like it's trying to find people to talk to, you know, because there's still like, we've still got a bloody list, but people are so busy at the moment, and you know, I'm enjoying it. Apparently, if you get past 22 or 21 episodes, you're in the top sort of 1% or something ridiculous of people that do podcasts. So it's like, man.
No, I believe that, and I mean, we've got some business out of it. So is it Kane from NZ Facilities? So we've been doing some work with him since we were both on your podcast, and there's a few other people that we know that, you know, kind of adds a bit of commonality, build some rapport with them. So
oh mate, that's cool. It's good to hear that it's doing something out there, because like I say, we just sit here and talk and then put it out there, and God knows what happens to it after that. But you know, if there's little bits and pieces coming off it, then fuck, that's great. It's more than I ever expected it to do. So yeah, it's cool. Good to see you again, man. And fuck, we'll might get you in for a third episode as well later on down the track.
Sounds good.
Cheers, mate.